Our next session, as I mentioned, we have one of our sponsors, EdgeConneX. So round of applause for the sponsors. Yay! That's what we need.
You're very welcome.
Excellent. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Elsa Pine, I'm the VP of Sales and Business Development for EdgeConneX. And yes, we're a sponsor, but we've been bleeding at the edge for almost 10 years now and have provided the infrastructure and connectivity for most of the content providers as well as the CDNs and the network. So looking forward to this chat.
Perfect. Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. Lily Yusupova from Schneider Electric. I'm the strategic account manager there, and we support our customers such as EdgeConneX on actually growing their infrastructure at the edge.
Okay, so great lead into the first question. What is the edge?
Well, it's funny because we always have this question asked, and I always tell people, well, the edge is where your customers are. So Comcast comes to us 10 years ago and says, how quickly can you build 17 to 25 facilities? And we want them in all of these locations. Okay, well, we come back and tell them we can do it in less than 6 months for most of these locations for half the price that they were going to build them for. So that's how we got started, building the OTT platforms near their markets that they were serving the end customers. Then came Cox, then came Charter. Then came the content that needs to get closer to the Comcast, closer to the Cox. So all of your gaming, all of your Netflix, a lot of your YouTube environments, all set up their own infrastructure just to support the Comcast, Cox, Charter network customers in those regions. So again, no transport, like Peter was talking about in his opening keynote, as well as saving on the cost overall, lowering latency, and achieving high performance, which is what it's all about.
And Lily, you see the edge as the same?
Yeah, the edge is definitely where the customer wants that content delivered, and there are different capabilities of the edge. So as a infrastructure supporter, we have to work very closely with our customers to understand what that edge is for them and help them deliver it, whether it's in North America, South America. So we support our customers globally trying to understand where does that information need to sit and how do we deliver it on the infrastructure level. You still need that power, you still need to cool it, you still need to put that infrastructure down to have the actual edge occur. And they can come in different aspects. I know that, Elsa with EdgeConneX, you guys have different types of edge capabilities, whether it's micro or regional or sits at different areas for your different clients. So yes, I agree. Edge is really where the customer drives that content.
And with the emergence of sort of virtualization, mobile edge compute, and so on and so forth, that edge presumably is becoming more dynamic as we go. Are you seeing change in the market on that basis?
Absolutely. Edge is definitely dynamic, and we see that with different, not only content providers, but really in the industry, everyone's trying to define what is the edge and how do we deliver that information to the end user, whether you're a content provider or even a manufacturer trying to deliver their information to manufacture the solution at that edge. So I would say edge is very dynamic, still trying to understand and really put a definition to it. I don't think we'll ever really have a definition. I think it's going to end up being a different industry definition type. But I think EdgeConneX has done a really good job with their clients and helping them understand what they need when it comes to the edge delivery.
So in some of the preamble email and so on, we talked about edge data centers, this idea of edge data center. So how small are these data centers getting, and where are you installing, and what sort of...
So when we first started off, we were roughly 2 to 10 megawatts. We were begged by multiple hyperscalers to come out and build 40 to 100 megawatt locations, but you'll see some of them going down to about 40 kilowatts, up to potentially 500 to a megawatt.
I have to just say, I'm so pleased you spoke in watts there, because we talk in gigabits, gigabytes as an industry all the time. And I put an article together last autumn, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later, but power is one of the biggest challenges in our sector, and it's just forgotten about. So
it's not just forgotten about, it's how on earth are we going to be able to support GPU utilization, which is 12 up to 30, sometimes 40 kilowatts per cabinet. And we built all of our facilities probably 4 steps ahead of ourselves. We were building to the average of 10 to 12 kilowatts per cabinet. Most of our customers coming in...
The street cabinet. or
A straight cabinet for...
a street cabinet? You mean fiber cabinet in the
rack,
street,
right,
or a rack
correct.
at the DC?
A rack of their equipment. So overall, on the average, you're looking at about 12 kilowatts per cabinet. But most of our customers, I call them the more sophisticated buyers, they've grown up past the retail environment, so they're not going to the larger conventional centralized data center providers. They're taking it one step further and saying, okay, I've learned how to do it their way with a draw cap or with, be an X out of per cabinet. Now I know how to manage power myself. I want it 80% utilization, I'm gonna keep it right here, and you're looking at every customer on the average coming in every month, exactly what they said they were gonna do when they started.
And you also have to make sure that it's resilient, right? You want to make sure that you have enough redundancy built into your infrastructure, that that content doesn't go down and that user still gets that positive user experience that they're expecting. We're all unhappy when we can't get into Netflix and we can't get into Facebook and we can't get into LinkedIn. So I think it's really important to know that these types of facilities also have to be very resilient, redundant, and make sure that that user experience is always positive.
So, continuing the story, once we've got our rack in place and we've got our power, finally found our power to run it, what are we installing in those racks? What's actually physically installed, and then what software are we installing on top?
I'm going to preface this, I don't know everything about all their software,
Just
but I do
computer
know
with
that it's lots and lots of equipment, especially on the gaming side. A lot of these GPUs are coming in much smaller on their processing units. And what they're looking to do is, I call this the friendship community. And for instance, let's say Atlanta, one of our facilities. A content provider is coming in knowing exactly who is where and who they want to connect to. They don't want to go to the main powerhouse of where they can connect to all the networks. They want to say, I just need my core partners. I've got Comcast, I've got Akamai, and I know I'm going to get the best performance for this gaming environment as long as I put it in this location, as long as I'm in that 100-mile radius of where I need to be. I had a customer come in, a new publishing provider that wants to build out their own infrastructure, and they're like, oh, wow, all these guys are here? I said, yeah. He goes, well, that's interesting. That's why my pings are so fast, because Twitch, NVIDIA, Google Gaming, all of them are sitting right in our facility. So I think you're seeing the drive truly become necessary because of video. The most important piece of streaming content we have right now is video, and 80% of the content that's streamed is mostly video. So how are we going to get there to support that? There's going to be quite a few different edge locations, multiple in certain regions, to support it as well as stand up, because it's the applications that matter.
And as companies, are you guys running the applications that are providing those edge services, or are you providing the hardware facility and the operational support to then let other parties come in and run the application in those environments?
We are completely Switzerland, always neutral as far as just providing the infrastructure, the power and the cooling with our partners like Schneider, and we provide our customers a single pane access. It's our proprietary DCIM system, so be able to go in, look across our 40-plus data centers in 31 key markets globally, and be able to see how their power is doing, how their humidity is doing, their connectivities. They can order cross-connects. We don't get involved in anything. We don't even sell any network providers. We give a content provider free access to every network that's in there. They don't pay for a cross-connect.
Okay,
so they're just paying for space and the ability to cool with that, but everything is passed through. It's completely transparent, and that's why we built this company.
So are networks peering inside these edge locations
Correct.
as well? Wow, that's inside out. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, finally, finally.
Excellent. Okay, so and how are you charging for access? What's the commercial model then? You're just charging for you're not charging for connectivity in these.
We're not charging for connectivity to whoever they need to connect to when you're a content provider. However, the fees are based on your power consumption, your expected power consumption, as well as the term. That's how the commercials work out. Just tell us how much power you're going to need. Day one, even give us a 5-year plan where you think you're going to be, so that we can give you contiguous space without charging you a reservation fee or something
so
like that.
So it's a data center model, but broken down into smaller components.
But we pass through all the power. So the power pricing gets passed through on a monthly basis.
Okay, and what sort of customers are coming into you? Are they publishers coming direct, building their own applications, or are they network operators or CDNs? What are
All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above. For instance, in South America, we had a very large customer come and ask us to be an anchor in a very, very prominent location that they're building. And, you know, we didn't have a lot of providers that we could count on, nor the ability and know-how to work in that market. Schneider did, and they were able to come and help us build that facility in just time for this end customer. And since then, we've now we're giving a second or alternate location in a very, very prime market.
Okay, so this sounds like a question for Lily then. What are the challenges in working in different territories with deploying these types of services? Obviously, we've got power, and that's going to be a central issue. But once you've sorted out the power, what are the other challenges that...
There's definitely a lot of challenges, and I think as you grow out your edge, you know, make sure you're working with a global capable company. Schneider is global. We have capabilities all throughout, and it's important to have boots on the ground who understand the political climate, understand how do you get things like equipment in and out of a country, how do you deploy it, you know, and working with different engineering firms, different clients to make sure their expectations are met, and also really important to set those expectations up front. There are different political climates. They're going to take different times to figure out how to do certain things. So I would say it's really important when you are looking to grow and expand, make sure that the companies you're working with are understanding of that climate. And EdgeConneX has done a really great job of understanding that in order for them to be global, they have to have really good global partners. And that is something we help them out with, is when they go into a new territory, we need to make sure that, hey, how are things done there? How are we going to get that, you know, uninterrupted power supply there? How are we going to get the cooling there? Are we going to manufacture it in or out or ship it? How does that all work? How does the VAT tax work? This is a tax world right now. Everything is, you know, we have to look at all the different costs. And what we do is we sit down with them and we help them understand all the different capabilities and then lower that, try to, as much as we can, lower the cost so then they can pass that on to their customer. Because that's really important. This is a very competitive market, so we want to make sure we work very closely with our clients on the infrastructure design so we can bring down the cost for their end users.
Perfect. Sorry, just to break for a sec. If you refresh the Google thing, I think it should be working by now. So do start throwing some questions in if you have them. So I'm just going to touch on mobile edge computing and so on. Do you see yourselves installing, or are you already installing in RANs and that deep in networks with ATSC3 coming as well? I can see the emergence of edge compute right at transmission masts for traditional radio networks as well. Are you already in those installing in radio access networks and for mobile masts and at the bases of transmitters? Are you that deep into the network?
I would say it's more on the Wi-Fi capabilities for customers and in the end user space, but I do see that coming, and we're talking to many different providers that want us to be able to go to that mobile tower, provide them a, you know, whether that be a small, tiny room. I always say it's container size, but it's not always container size. It could be the size of a, you know,
fridge freezer or something.
A refrigerator, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's about the machine learning, which is driving the need to have more and more capabilities at the edge. So if even a car has all their sensors, and you know, I always call it the digital twin, needs to capture that data so they can see what went wrong before that accident even happened. All of these are the applications that are becoming completely inherent across all of these providers, across all of these partners, that they work together. So if Ford needs Akamai and Akamai needs Comcast, they're all working together, but basically inside of our data center, which I call the ecosystem.
Cool. Sorry, any thoughts on the moment? What was I going to ask you? I went blank. I need any questions from the audience, guys? Yes, please. Eric, are you going to run? I'll do this one. Here we go. Man with the hat runs.
Hi, my name is Sandro Reitenbach. I'm from GECO Labs, and I know EdgeConneX quite well because I was at the very beginning when it's appeared. And actually, we as a CDN, we're looking always for locations, not only from data center perspective, because let's say data center is more or less commodity. It's more about price and quality of smart hands. But nowadays, we're trying, for example, to find alternatives to EdgeConneX. And the issue is usually that they own EdgeConneX AX and all of the AXs. So if you want to connect to AX, usually you can't avoid to be in EdgeConneX, at least for connectivity pub, which is not that good.
So as far as connectivity is concerned, I always say, well, who are your partners? Who do you need to connect to? Usually our facilities are not that far away that they can get a straight direct hop back to that facility and put their network node there for whom they need to connect to. But if their provider, or if their customers are Comcast, Cox, or Charter's end customers, if those kids are gaming, they're going on via those providers. So that's the majority of why the content is getting closer to the OTT providers, so they can stream that content. But there are alternatives, and I always say, look at your options, but I like to say we're the nice alternative, we're the transparent alternative to some of the larger providers, as well as less costly. And I worked for that provider for 8 years, so.
Any other questions on the floor?
Without disparaging them.
Oh, yeah, there's one to Eric, do you want to?
Sorry, this question should be for Elsa.
Yes.
Yeah, good. So I'm wondering, and I know there's not a universal agreement about what is one of the edge. So when we talk about edge, what's the typical footprint in terms of, I don't know, square miles or square kilometers?
Well, I always say, like for a gaming platform,
Yeah.
it's usually a 100-mile radius is what they're looking to support.
That's huge.
100
And
miles.
So what would be the kind of resources that EdgeConneX has there in terms of compute and streaming, for example, which would be caching?
Right.
So there are different types of resources. And what would be the kind of bandwidth ingress and out of the of the data center?
Well, I don't handle the network side of that because we don't provide network services. Each customer will provision their network services. We've got plenty of dark fiber providers. We've got dual entrances for fiber. I'll give an example of one gaming provider that was building out their cloud gaming environment, and when they were looking at all the locations that they needed to cover, 50 out of 100 were right in our markets. So the 50 top gaming markets, EdgeConneX is in. I did have a slide of all of our locations, but you could see where our facilities are, and I'll be glad to share a map of that.
Okay.
Sorry, I haven't got
That's
the
okay.
slide set up, and if I start fiddling with it, I will
That's
break
okay,
something.
don't worry,
so-
don't worry. I'll share that later.
Okay, quickly, do you know the kind of latency you're able to achieve? How low is latency?
We're talking 3 to 5 microseconds.
And are you seeing different requirements from different operators for compute? You're talking about high GPU for, presumably that's for gaming and video
Right.
applications and so on, or maybe a fringe of AI as well. But are you seeing other types of requirements on the compute infrastructure you're installing? And does that also, a sort of secondary question tucked into that is, does that require you as organizations to reskill constantly to develop the ability to support those types of different application technologies?
We were just talking about this last week and how storage is one of the biggest computing needs that you have at the edge as well. So a lot of our technicians, we actually have been working for over 5 years with a company called Salute. So Salute trains all veterans coming out to get back into the world and working, and we actually have them working for Salute in our data centers, and they might be technicians, and we actually level them up and they allow them to become employees as they increase their skill sets for remote hands, et cetera. But we do have to work hand in hand with a lot of these providers. But again, most of these customers are our customers, are sophisticated, and most of their sites, if they're not because of a customer that needs 24/7, they're all lights out, they're unmanned. You walk in, you use your hand reader, you get in, zero pass back. It's very, very low key. This is why we're able to keep it such low cost, and there's zero interference with humans.
And just a last wrapping up question. What do you see as the biggest challenges for your operation over the next 5 years?
Scale.
Scale?
Scale. I think the manpower to scale is, let's face it.
Manpower to scale, or
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, this is content. When you guys need something, it was 2 months ago, not 2 months ahead. So we are always rushing to, do a fast installer, to expedite everything because, let's just face it, decisions take a long time in this space for some reason, so.
Yeah, definitely manpower, growing segments globally. So, you're starting to see South America get more connected. You're starting to see Africa, India, a lot of different global reach right now into the edge. So there's a lot of need for highly experts in in the skills in this industry, whether it's getting to the content there and or getting power there, getting skilled labor just to build the edge for you. So that's really important too. The edge doesn't exist without some sort of equipment. It doesn't necessarily sit in the cloud. There's somewhere physically sitting. So it's really the labor, the need, the equipment. Right now, as a manufacturer, we're seeing a high demand from some of these content providers on equipment alone. Getting switchgear to them, getting power to them, getting cooling to them, high demand. So we have to manage all that as partners, as manufacturers in the industry. Very high demand in the growth for the edge right now.
It's interesting, since the sort of halcyon days of the late 90s and early 2000s, when there were just millions of different ways of doing hosting and data and so on, there was a lot of people around in the industry and so on. And actually, I think with the advent of public cloud, a lot of the people who know how to wire up a data center have either retired or moved on to pastures new. So I think there is a skills gap. But
very big need for skilled labor in our
cool.
industry.
I have to get my crimping tools out.
Yes, let's get you out there.
Excellent. Any last questions, guys, from the floor? Okay, well, Elsa, Lily, thank you very much for your session.
Thank
I'd like
you.
a round of applause, please. Get